Today's motion pushes for the government to recognize informal skills present in the economy. Thus, the motion states, African governments must adopt alternative credentialing systems that recognize and validate skills acquired outside of formal education for better monetization. Going head-to-head in this debate are Jamhuri High School on proposition and Nairobi School on opposition. All the best to both teams. With that said, first proposer, the floor is yours.
A wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer. These are the words from the famous actor Bruce Lee. Hi, my name is Imran Bilal from the Jamhuri High School, here to propose the motion African governments must adopt alternative credentialing system that recognize and validate skills required outside of formal education for better monetization. Now, let's go to the definition of terms. African government, political systems and institutions that govern a country within the African continent. Alternative credentialing system refers to the method of validating and recognizing skills, knowledge that differs from traditional education or professional certification pathway. Validate means to confirm or establish legitimacy, accuracy, or truth of something. Formal education, structure education systems that opens from an early age of a child through going to a higher education. Monetization, the best part of this motion, refers to the process of converting something into a source of income. Basically, what team proposition is going to say here is that you love football, she loves singing, and I love debating, but we are pushed away because they don't want to introduce the system of skills in school. So, we as team proposition are saying we should all coexist. You have talent, yes, they can teach it in school. I love reading history books, I can also learn them in schools, but don't give formal education a upper hand, please. So, we also need skills. Why am I saying this? Aziad Nyasenya, who doesn't have a degree in humanity or any degree at all yet, but she was given a big role. She was appointed global ambassador for Save Yourself Future. And it is because of her skills that was showcased through TikTok. You see, now we give also a solution. We want to introduce dual studies as a solution. Dual studies is the combine of academic and practical experience, like in Germany, how they practice this. And this is why the government wants to push CBC. You see, before I wind up, I would like to introduce inclusivity and accessibility, which my first or third proposer will speak about. Thank you.
First of all, I think they made quite good definitions of the motion. African governments must adopt alternative credentialing systems that recognize and validate skills acquired outside formal education for better monetization. By the way, disclaimer to all of y'all, I don't give cliches, so I won't say should I say a quote they gave randomly that they don't even understand. And also, do you guys understand what skills means? Skills, the ability to do something well. So you're telling me, like, right now debating, am I debating well? Thank you. Debating is also a skill. Learning maths is also a skill. You're able to understand what you're learning and you know how to do it well. So I think you guys haven't read the motion that well. First of all, I'm gonna give facts. So if you're tired of me reading, I'm sorry. This is our first fact. Oh, sorry. What is the status quo of credentialing systems in Africa? Does anyone know? Let me explain. credentialing systems in Africa apply both book knowledge and applying it in part of your skills to qualify for a job. Does anyone here do technicals? Since we have all Form 4s, at Form 4s high school. For me, I do music. Music applies both singing, playing an instrument, and other things, even dancing. I can do this. That's a skill. And it still applies to formal education. Oh, and another rebuttal. They mentioned CBC. CBC is still formal. It's not a form of informal education. Since what is formal education? Formal education refers to the structured education systems that run from primary to university, including specialized programs. Debate is a formal education. Contests are formal education. Sports are formal education. Now I shall begin my points. Resistance from traditional institutions. The adoption of alternative credentialing systems may face resistance from traditional education institutions, regulatory bodies that have vested interest in maintaining the status quo. For example, Nairobi University, what's it known for? It's known for producing doctors. It's known for producing the best lawyers in the country. A major aspect of this is institutional inertia. The notion is proposed to mitigate degradation of quality education. Plus, there's also organization of culture and bureaucracy. African governments must consider that not potential, but the actual drawbacks and challenges associated with alternative credentialing systems and works towards developing balanced approaches that prioritize quality, equity, and accountability. And first of all, African countries have actually tried to adopt skills outside of formal education. For example, South Africa, they tried to do it, and let's see what their drawbacks were. According to Africa Debate Analytics, South Africa introduced a credentialing systems that recognize skills outside formal education, yet they have the highest unemployment rate in Africa at 28.84%, while Niger unemployment rate is 0.08%. I conclude by telling you that our team shall deliver on the point and not give you fake facts. We will deliver. Thank you, and I rest my case.
You see, it takes two to argue, but one to reason. You see, what really amazes me about the first speaker of side opposition is that he comes here and states that debating is a form of formal education. That means he's simply implying that in school, for him to become part of a debate club, he had to gain a PhD in the name of formal education to become a speaker on stage. You see, the reason why we as side opposition are advocating for skills is because, okay, they give clear statistics about countries that are advocating for formal education in terms of development and entrepreneurship and stuff. But comparing those countries to Kenya, how many people in our country have PhDs, degrees, and still are underemployed? Let me give you statistics. You see, according to statista.com, it clearly states that Kenyan youths, especially the ones in university category, end up being unemployed, not because they do not have the incentive of having jobs, but because the formal education they acquired has not been considered. For example, you see, we have Pakistan. Pakistan imported $707 million in tea, becoming the first largest tea importer in the world. In the same year, tea was in the 21st century. You see, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because looking at the way they imported tea, that was about the skills they acquired, not the formal education that they put in place. You see, the reason why we as also team opposition are focusing on skills is because, number one, we are addressing skills mismatch. Traditional education systems often fail to keep pace with the evolving demands of the job market, leading to mismatch between graduate skills and employees. And speaking of employees, according to business studies, we have 3 levels of skills. We have the unskilled labor, semi-skilled labor, and the unskilled labor. The reason why we are advocating for skills in this country is because we are not saying that we are dehumanizing formal education, get me right. We are saying simply we should have your academic credentials. At the same time, we have your skills, because at the end of the day, we want your talent to bring about development in the country, not the amount of knowledge you've acquired. Of course, I can sit down for a whole week and read a novel and get a clear understanding of it, but how is that going to benefit me to become an entrepreneur of the country? How is that going to benefit me to become a proper leader tomorrow in the society? That is the question I need to ask myself, because for me to venture into something, I need to be sure that whatever I am getting into has something to do with profits, has something to do with development of the country and development of oneself. As I conclude, we have industry and accessibility. Many individuals, particularly in African countries, lack access to formal education due to economic, geographic, or social barriers. For example, you see, we have people, for example, we have 61% people can afford education, but how about that 39% that are unable to afford formal education? That is why we advocate for skills. And that is why my first speaker came here and gave a clear example of the TikTok star, Aziad Nasenya, who was appointed as the global ambassador for the Save Our Future, and yet she didn't have a degree in humanity. And so with that, I allow my third speaker to emphasize more on the motion. Thank you, and I'll see you in the reply speech.
You see, I have a big problem. With the proposition side, because let me repeat the motion. I think they didn't understand the motion. African governments must adopt alternative credentialing systems that recognize and validate skills acquired outside formal education for better monetization. Now, this motion in no way states monetization for the individual. And as I correctly predicted, the proposition would only win this motion by trying to make it for the individual. But let me repeat again the motion, just so that you hear. African governments must adopt alternative credentialing systems that recognize and validate skills acquired outside formal education. So this monetization is not for individuals, it's for the government. Using this case, I will translate that better monetization for the government is better economy. So this is why I'm going to say that when we actually try to change this and adapt this alternative credentialing system to favor, as the point they were trying to say, for individual, we actually make less money. So why is that? I will first start with status quo and a lot of facts. First, I will agree that our current system in credentialing does focus more on formal education and largely tends to put aside validating skills around it. I correct that. I actually agree with that. But then, what I do not agree with is the fact how they use the individual part of it. Because when we talk about the economy, we are talking about everybody in person. So my also second status quo is that according to the World Bank evaluation, the sub-Saharan Africa is composed to low and lower middle countries. About 462 million people in the region are still living in extreme poverty in 2023. But get this, the official poverty rate in 2022 was 11.5%, and the current rate is increased by 13%. Sorry, the employment rate increased by 13%. So my first point is our system is working. And why am I going to say that? I will call my argument the economic priority fact. What do I mean by this? Our current system favors these STEM subjects and the skills that are involved with it. By STEM, I'm talking about science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. This is because these subjects are the ones which actually push the economy. So when we focus more on these subjects, even though they will say that more people are left out, but the ones who will be part of this system, the ones who will actually do these STEM subjects, are the ones who will be part of raising the economy. And that's why I will say that I will actually be the devil's advocate and say we don't really have to accompany all these informal skills if our formal education already accompanies the ones that are needed to push the government ahead for better monetization. That is my point. So what do I mean? I also mean, what you want facts? Okay, according to the World Economic Atlas, most of the top 10 poorest countries in Africa have a majority of GDP, and which is less. So when we really get this STEM subject and we focus on our system as it is, it will get us far, far, far more than if we actually try to change it. Thank you very much.
Well, I have some issues with the points that side opposition have raised onto the table. Now, they were talking about, the second speaker has only come and talked about priority pan fact, as he called it. Now, I have a couple of questions about this. Now, he talked about that it is working. Now, my question is, why do we still have people who have PhDs, who have been successful and yet are still jobless? Yeah. Number two, he said that some people will be successful, and these will be the people who will be working towards making the country's economy better. But we, as side proposition, we are saying that we should adopt alternative credentialing systems, because everyone will play their part in improving the country's economy. But why do I say this? It seems like side opposition have not yet understood the motion on why we stand with side proposition, in which I will explain right now. Now, it has come to us that many people gain valuable skills through work experience, online courses, or other means, but these skills are often not formally acknowledged. Now, by adopting systems that recognize these skills, more people can get better jobs and improve their income. And that is why my first speaker came and talked about addressing skills mismatch, where we will be dealing with SDG number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure, where alternative credentiality systems can recognize skills through work experience, vocational training, online courses, and other non-traditional pathways. This ensures that individuals' capabilities are more accurately represented and aligned with their market needs. And what will this bring? This will bring development, this will bring innovation, and this will encourage, or rather, it will develop the country as a whole. Now, on to my next point. My second speaker was speaking about inclusivity and accessibility, where he tried to showcase that many individuals, particularly in African countries, lack access to formal education due to economic, geographic, or social barriers. Now, with they are saying that we should not adopt these alternative credentiality systems, then how will we solve this problem? Not everyone has access to adequate education. Well, with the credentialing system, we will see that alternative credentialing systems can provide a more inclusive approach, recognizing the skills of those who cannot afford or access traditional education. This can help reduce inequality and promote social mobility, and that is why I believe that we should be advocating for alternative credentiality systems, because they will work. They will work. I'm confident because of these points that I've given you and of what it is to come. Now, as I finish, I will speak about economic growth and workforce development real quick. Now, with this, we'll be solving SDG number 8, which is the efficient work and economic growth. Well, let me explain. High unemployment and underemployment rates are prevalent in many African countries, with many individuals working in the informal sector, where skills are unrecognized and undervalued. But with this system that we're implementing, it will validate the skills acquired outside formal education. These systems can help integrate individuals into formal economy, improving job prospects and earning potential. This can lead to increased productivity and economic growth. And I believe my job is done. Over and out. Thank you.
All the way from Nairobi School stands before you the Trevor Joseph. And I come here together with my team to oppose the motion. African governments must adopt alternative credentialing systems that recognize and validate skills acquired outside of formal education for better monetization. Third proposer. I heard you say that there are a number of people in our country with PhDs and they are still unemployed. And my second opposer clearly stated that this system is working. Why does he say this system is working? In South Africa, in 1995, they adopted an alternative credentialing system. They adopted a system known as RGL. And guess what? After 13 years, they dropped it. You know why? The unemployment rate raised by 28%. You know 28%? like we are 100 people in here. Then let's say like 28 more of us don't get employed. You still want to applaud to use that system? You still? Huh? Does it? No. And to my first point, which leads me to my first point. This is going to lead to lack of standardization. What do I mean by standardization? The process of making something conform to a certain standard. If we have so many of these alternative credentialing systems, so many of these different standards, it's going to make it so difficult for an employer to decide, who should I hire for this? Why shouldn't I hire this person? Imagine my CV is using the current credentialing system and it comes up with Trevor Joseph, studied in Nairobi school, got an airplane. Then another person's CV who used a different credentialing system comes up with, let me say, Michael something. He studied in a different school and he has a B+. But under that, they have put other skills that he has. So the employer is going to be like, should I employ this person who seems smarter and might be more productive, or this person who has more skills and might actually help? This is going to lead to the person wondering who she should employ. And in the end of the day, he's going to not employ any of them, or he might employ one. And this person who had a B+ decided to take more time in improving his abilities, yet it's not helping him. Someone else who took his time doing something that was more effective, studying, getting a good grade that would help him in the future, gets this job, but another person doesn't. Guys, it's simple. Come to this side. Come to this. This thing is direct. We have already won. Thank you.
Third speaker, I don't want you to cry. You see, we are not saying that we are removing formal education. We are simply saying, my dear sons, that we are putting up skills so that you as a person can develop as a human, not only for the country, but for the benefit of the globalization. Now, I have a good example here. You see, we have a good advocate, a good lawyer. His name is Brian Mwendwa. Do you know this guy won 26 good cases in a court? And guess what? This guy did not even have a degree in humanities. Can you imagine such a thing? That was because of the skills that he got and the skills that he worked on to develop himself. And you might be surprised that the same way we are standing here arguing about formal education and skills is the same way he used his skills to better and win 26 good cases. And I have a good illustration here. Jamhuri, would you like to hear some results? I have an English paper, and guess what the name reads? Joseph Trevor, out of 60, garnered 15. Imagine. That is why we as team of proposition, we are stating that in as much as he's scoring an E in English, he's going to improve in English, whereby right now he's speaking good English, but on the basis of developing himself, he's going to be employed because he's eloquent. He has the ability to be confident in stage and convince people based on matters facing the society at large. And with that, I believe my time is up. Thank you very much. I'll leave the judges to make their remarks. Thank you.
You see, when I'm talking about this motion, it seems like our friends have gone so low that their motion doesn't work anymore. They resulted to insults. But I will still stick to the motion because they don't understand it. This motion is not about individual growth, it's about economic growth. He talks about the number of PhDs unemployed and said that growth was nowhere. And they're still talking about the individual. Number one, I will ask them, do they have the statistics to back it up? Do they have the statistics of those number of PhDs? Because we have statistics. Why? Overall, this is from the African Development Bank, published on February 2024. Overall, the real GDP growth for the African continent is expected to average at 3.8% and 4.2% in 2024, respectively. This is higher than the predicted average of 2.9 to 3.2%. Listen and listen well. This makes Africa the second fastest growing region after Asia in the entire world. So our system is working. So when they talk about individual system and eloquency, if it makes money for the government, it's already there. So stop changing it because our government is working. And you talk about, and my friend here talked about how it has been tried in Africa because you're bringing ideals from the West. He talked about the recognition of prior learning. That's what the system South Africa implemented. Guess what? He told you right now, it increased by 28%. 28%. So please find statistics because I find your argument totally unbased. Thank you very much.
The two teams, you fairly laid down your cases with very powerful submissions backed by evidence. There was evidence of research from both teams, which is quite commendable, and some powerful stage presence, which is part of the ingredients of a great debater. Now, Imran, you had excellent definition of terms, the example of ASEAN, and then you brought on board German. However, I wish you went ahead to say, how does it work in German? That was missing. And then you took too long doing the introduction, and this affected now on your mastery of, your presentation of subsequent points. So kindly check on that. Thomas, you mentioned about a mismatch and then the credentialing systems creating some kind of link. We felt from the judge's desk that you could have given us types or different examples of credentialing systems that we have in Africa and how they have worked in order to improve the bit of monetization. Otherwise, thank you very much.